Everybody, please be aware we are now recording this meeting, so you are being recorded.
All right, Tom, thank you. Go ahead.
Thanks, Ginger and Cecilia. And congrats to Ginger and Cecilia and Kristen and Sudip on stepping up, and the rest of the board. It's really great to have you moving up into these leadership roles. Thanks so much to Becky for all your hard work, and everybody that puts in the time, because it really makes our neighborhood much better and stronger. And when I say our neighborhood, I'm one of your neighbors over on Stockton Road. Amy and my sons are here as well. Just a block, if you don't know Stockton, we're just 5 houses, 1 block south of Flower and 1 house east of Franklin. I'm sorry, 1 house west of Flower and 1 block south of Franklin and Robin. I'm just checking the agenda here. I believed I was asked to just talk a little bit about the Purple Line, although I guess Annie's talking about it later, so I don't want to step on her fulsome report. And I'm really glad to be here to hear Amanda's report on the men's shelter. And if you all have, allow me to take any questions, I'm happy to take questions. So if that's correct, I'll give you a quick take on the Purple Line. Let's see. You all get the same news I get. You know that the Circuit Court Judge in Baltimore City recently allowed Purple Line Transit Partners, the financiers behind Purple Line Transit constructors that have been building the Purple Line for the last 3 years, to walk away from the project, to invoke their rights to walk away from the project, which they're now currently planning to do. They've been in negotiations over 4 different issues with MTA for about 3 years. If you didn't see all this in the newspaper, the issues include the record of decision, essentially meaning the fact that, well, I should start at the beginning. Under the contract between MTA, Maryland Transit Administration, and Purple Line Transit Partners, the contract that the state signed says either party can leave the contract and the project if there's delay outside their control of over a year. So the first area of dispute, so they've been in dispute over, well, whose fault? There is clearly delay of well over a year. They've been in discussion of essentially in negotiations over whose fault are these issues that eventually led to the court decision that we're talking about. So the first one is the delay due to the record of decision, which is the lawsuit that was brought by individuals in Chevy Chase to stop the whole project. That obviously resulted in a delay we all know about for about a year and a half. There's also dispute over the right-of-way, because it was MTA's responsibility to either purchase the land or the easements so they could build the entire Purple Line, and Purple Line Transit Partners would say in certain areas they didn't have the land ready so they could begin construction. Third area is the stormwater law that is in place in the state, and the payments that any major construction project has to make to the state. Purple Line Transit Partners didn't want to make the full payment, and the state insisted that they should because of our mutual commitment to our waterways and the bay. And the fourth area has to do with CSX. CSX required structural modifications around the Silver Spring Transit Center, which they always require to protect their assets from a Purple Line train, essentially, and a wall. And Purple Line Transit Partners didn't want to pay for all that, and engaged in a lot of negotiations and arguments with CSX, which is not easy to argue with for any local government either. But all that added up to well over a year in delay. PLTP argues that they haven't been able to make any money on the project because they are paying these contractors and won't be able to begin the trains on time. And so they've been asking for permission to walk away, which the judge now gave them. The judge didn't agree with any of MTA's arguments. This is, as you all know, just as a reminder, it's a state project. It was authorized by the state. A third of the money comes from the state. It was given the green light by the governor. And so the county, unfortunately, I wish we had a lot more control over it, but we don't. Our role, and I serve as the vice president of the council now, but I'm also the chair of the transportation committee, has been to call in MTA in front of the council to make them answer questions and give us the updates that we want, as well as over the years, I've dragged them to lots of community meetings about the design of the project as well and their communication. In front of the council back in May, Secretary of the Transportation, I asked him before the judge's decision, what will happen if the judge rules against MTA and PLTP walks away? Secretary Slater committed in no uncertain terms that this is the top priority for the governor and they're going to finish the project one way or the other. And then after the judge, during the court case, the judge cited my questions in some of his arguments that MTA wouldn't suffer irreparable harm, which they were charging they would, if PLTP left the project. So now they're leaving the project, and Administrator Quinn of MTA has come before the council, and I've asked him the same question, and he's said over and over again, multiple times on camera, we are going to finish this project, period. You will want to know how they could do that. There are a few options. One is they're discussing with their lawyers whether they should appeal the judge's decision. And so that's the whole legal route. If they decline to appeal the judge's decision, they have to just suck it up and get the project done. They can either do that by through a P3, a public-private partnership, as it has been constructed to date, or as a traditional design build project like any other MTA or MDOT road project. The P3 option leaves you, there's two alternatives. One is, even though PLTP has brought the lawsuit and won the lawsuit, they might still be persuaded to stay on the project. And the state says that they're open to a fair settlement that protects the taxpayers. So in some ways, the path of least resistance is just write the check to PLTP, keep them on the project, avoid delays, avoid the need to bid it out again, and keep the project moving forward. The downside is you have to write the settlement check to PLTP, and then you still have to pay about $1 billion worth of construction costs. And that's with no future delays. Another route would be to draw up a new P3 and allow private contractors to bid on that. And a third route, as I mentioned, was just treat it like any other transportation project and work with current MDOT contractors to finish the project and supervise it and have MDOT supervise the project itself. So while I wish they would have a decision right now, they have said they need 4 to 6 months to do their analysis and figure out the right route forward. They're also, as I mentioned, doing a legal analysis to figure out if this state goes back to court. What else was I supposed to tell you about the Purple Line? That's kind of where we are now. I wish I had better news. I hate being the bearer of bad news, but it's the state has really, I think mismanaged this project greatly. It was never a high priority for Governor Hogan. He was critical of it when he was a candidate. He was persuaded to get behind it, largely by elected officials in Montgomery County and the previous county executive and the business community. He decided, okay, if I'm going to get behind it, I will value engineer it and take out things initially like the public art that was taken out and the green tracks that made the project more exciting and valuable. Public art has been restored. Then he extracted concessions from each of the counties, and we put in about $200 million of our county tax dollars on top of the state for the project. So we're real stakeholders as well, financially as well as in every other way. And he hired, MDOT Secretary Pete Ron, who had only been the Secretary of Transportation in New Mexico and Missouri, never managed a big transit project before. He's a road guy, not a transit guy, never made this a priority, and I think neglected it for years. And the fact that they were at impasse at the table negotiating for 2 years and never settled these issues when he knew in the contract it said anybody can walk away after a year's delay is complete malpractice, to me. So they should have done it much earlier. It's never been the priority. We're all sort of paying the price for it, and I'm doing everything we can to hold their feet to the fire and make sure that they can keep their promise to finish the project, minimizing future delays and with no future additional contribution from the county. So I'll stop there.
That's great, Tom. Do we have any quick questions for Mr. Hucker?
This is Becky. They're effectively stopping work for the winter. It seems realistic that they start it up again and be early spring.
Yeah, some of it. Construction's a funny thing, especially in our areas. There's some of it you can do, you know, even we don't have very cold winters, and our winters are getting less cold every year. It seems like we didn't have any real snow last winter. There's some of it you can do, you know, in pretty cold weather. And there's some of it you can't. You're right. But yeah, it'll certainly slow down if they can decide where this is all headed. And again, they probably won't even decide the path forward until the winter is nearly over.
Yeah, I guess just to follow up, the reason I was asking that is they certainly seem to have removed all their equipment, and although they have sort of perfunctory swept the roads are in pretty bad shape. And
Right.
I saw that Miriam was also asking about that. So it was really more of a question. I was asking that to imply how long we're going to put up with
Right.
disarray. You know?
Well, so no, thank you for raising that. I left that out. They have said publicly, and not that I can make them do it, but they've said publicly that they'll repave all the roads, fix all sidewalks, fix all potholes before they leave. Okay. So we have a closing window before they do that. Councilmember Glass and I are doing a walk that's scheduled with MTA officials and some county officials, masked and safely distanced, from Silver Spring International Middle School along Wayne Avenue down to Sligo, 10 a.m. Saturday morning. And we're doing another one in Bethesda Saturday afternoon to do exactly that. And civic activists are invited, but we're trying to keep it small, obviously, but to identify all the individual pain points that we want them to fix. I spoke before the Park Hill Civic Association last night, talked about this. They mentioned that from their point of view, somebody mentioned they thought the sidewalks on Wayne had been improved with asphalt. We're not yet up to ADA standards. I don't know that they'll get there by the time they leave, but this is the time when we should be vocal and trying to flag each of these issues. And that walk on Saturday is one way to do it. There's also, is Dave Kunes, my chief of staff, here still?
Yes, sir.
Hey, Dave, if you might want to put in the chat or figure out how to share, there's a new email address where you don't have to go through me to them, but you can email outreach at, I think it's marylandpurpleline.com. And your questions go directly to the Purple Line staff at MTA. Apologies, we should have had them invited them to this meeting. They were at the Park Hills meeting yesterday. And there's a new phone number as well, just dedicated for sort of neighborhood complaints about Purple Line construction.
Great. I'll put that in the chat. I also wanted to recognize my colleague, Valeria Carranza, who is both your neighbor and Councilmember Glass's chief of staff, who's on the call.
Absolutely.
And also, I wanted to mention that we have two people who raised their hands. First, we have Ilhan Kagri raised her hand, and then Annie Talkin.
Yeah, you kind of answered my question, Tom, except I just want to be clear. So there was a lot of sort of these explosions that went under these houses on the way to Giant. Those are, I'm assuming that, you know, they made tunnels or whatever, or partial tunnels. Are those going to stay just like that? And also, you know, some of the roads, like the entrance onto Giant, so how back to the original are we going to go now that they're stopping work? I mean, so it looks like there's construction going on. So are they going to go back to what it looked like before they actually started building, or are they going to do sort of best case scenario fixing things up as they leave?
You know, that's a great question. Obviously, the tunnel's not going anywhere. The Plymouth Street tunnel is almost complete. Most of the pain Annie and your neighbors have already suffered through, and they just need to complete it like the rest of the project. Arliss Street, I don't know. I mean, it's been closed. Obviously, we can enter through from Flower and the Giant parking lot and to the Piney Branch side. You know, I doubt they're going to reopen that, but I haven't asked, and I am happy to check.
Can I just finish? So, you know, that big construction thing sitting in the Giant parking lot, are they just going to leave that there and walk away from that? So basically they're just, you know, paving a few roads and walking away. I'm trying to understand the extent of what their walking away looks like.
Ilhan, I wish I knew now, and I don't, and I'm happy to ask. And there may not even be an answer at this point because, as I mentioned, it makes sense. If they can do a settlement with Purple Line Transit Partners, those same workers and trucks will go back on the job. And if they, and that question is unanswered at this point. And if Purple Line Transit Partners really does walk away as they've, threatened to, then yeah, I imagine the tent and the equipment goes away as well.
So this is Annie. Hi, Tom and everyone.
Okay.
Josh is here with me. And so 2 questions. Tom, you said PLPT would be responsible for repaving or redoing the sidewalks like before they left was what I was hearing. And I guess I'm just questioning, like, is PLPT responsible for returning the site area back to what it was, or does that transfer to the state, or do you have an understanding of that?
What I've been told, and a couple times, and I haven't read the contract, but I was told again last night at the Park Hills meeting by our county DOT staffer who's assigned to the Purple Line, is that the contract, between the with Purple Line Transit Partners requires them to do exactly that, to restore roads to usable condition. I don't know if it says original condition, to return sidewalks to usable condition, et cetera.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of work to do then.
There's a lot to cram into these final 2 weeks, I would say.
Absolutely, and I'm glad Valeria is here, and I hope you can participate in Councilmember Glass and the walk I'm going to join on Saturday, because you might know every pothole better than almost everybody else.
And to that point, and just kind of because Ilhan had asked a question too, so people have probably seen a lot of the advocacy and just kind of efforts I've been trying to get out there on the Sligo-Branview listserv and on Facebook. So with our neighbors here, the neighbors impacted by Manchester Tunnel, and with Elaine and the Oakview Corridor group across Flower, we put together a comprehensive list of questions and concerns that are being emailed out tomorrow to Secretary Slater and everybody under the sun. So all of the council members will get it as well. And it basically has all of the questions, Ilhan, that you just raised too, about what are these sites going to look like? What does it mean to secure these sites, and our expectations around how they should be buttoned up, quote unquote.
We tried to get pretty specific about everything from the purple wall to the various equipment to the sidewalks. So we went into as much detail as anybody provided with all of the different questions. And it sounds like we should send that to Purple Line as well.
Yep.
If they might be responsible for doing some of that before they
Leave.
peace out.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it seems outrageous. It's a huge construction project, right? And then you say, okay, well, I guess we're walking away. Let me just pick this up so people don't trip on it. But otherwise, it is what it is. It's like, are you kidding me? You wrecked up our neighborhood, and then you say, oh, walking away. Somebody's got to be responsible for that at some point. It's just, it's extremely disrespectful of the neighborhood.
Say, hopefully
And
that's not whoever wrote the contract.
Yeah. Well, I'll leave it, and I see myself on the agenda too, but that was the Purple Line action update, so we can come back to it if we need to. But yeah.
No, I think that was an excellent update. You kind of segued right into Tom's update. So if we have no other questions for Tom at the moment, can we kind of shift over to Amanda Harris, who can talk about the men's shelter. This was also something that Annie had requested, and other people had requested information on this too. So Amanda, if you're still available, please go right ahead and let us know what your update is.
Sure. Good evening. I guess it's evening, right? It's dark out now. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all. So I'm going to give you just a little bit of background information about how we got here, and then talk a little bit about what our plans are for the future. So as you can imagine, COVID-19 has totally disrupted our whole world and our whole approach to homeless services. We needed to mobilize very, very quickly at the beginning to ensure that people were healthy and safe. Per guidance from the CDC and our own health officer, Dr. Gales, we needed to spread out the shelter. So typically in a homeless shelter, you have a lot of people crammed into a very tiny space. You got bunk beds. The bunk beds are maybe a foot, 2 feet apart. We were not able to maintain any kind of social distancing within our existing shelter facilities. So what we did is, the first thing that we did is we actually took out anyone who was over 62 or had medical vulnerabilities and moved them to hotel. They needed to not be in any kind of congregate facility. And then the next thing we did is really looked at what other facilities does the county have access to right away to be able to set up as a temporary shelter. So the rec centers were closed. They have showers, they have large spaces. They were basically pretty perfect to be able to use as a temporary shelter, and have been used as temporary shelter before. I'm sure you all know that during the Flower Branch explosion, we did use the rec center as a temporary shelter. So we knew that that space could work. We're also looking at, when we look at things for shelter for people experiencing homelessness, we need to make sure that the facility is close to public transportation. Most of the people that we're serving, they don't have cars, they don't have a lot of money to be able to get around. So the Long Branch and the Cofield Recreational Center were selected to be used as temporary facilities. So that's what we have done. Since that, we have continued our efforts to house people. We are still deeply committed to ending homelessness in this county despite the pandemic. We have housed over 150 people in the last few months. We are also doing regular testing. So we are doing universal testing of everyone that's in shelter at intake, and then we test every month to make sure that we're containing the spread. Anyone that tests positive, we move to a isolation hotel. They are there for their 14 days, and then they're able to come back. So we are so grateful that we have this facility. We know it is not ideal, and we also fully understand that at some point the rec centers are going to open up and people are going to want their facility back. So we know that. I don't have concrete plans, but it is definitely something that we are having lots of discussions about. We have gone from having 390 shelter beds for single adults, and now with the need to social distance, that is not actually going away. Even when there is a vaccine, we are never going to be able to go back to a time when we crammed everybody in there. So this is our new reality. So we've gone from 390 beds to 93 permanent beds. So that's a huge gap that we have to fill. And so we're actively working with DGS on identifying some permanent locations for us to be able to expand. So that is our plan for right now. We've also received several federal resources to try and move more people out and actually put them into permanent housing. But we know we need more than 93 beds. We're always going to need more than 93 beds. So that's what we're working on. And then the last thing I will say before I open it up for questions is, this is not how we typically do things. If we are going to open a shelter in a community, we normally would have many, many months of community engagement and have conversations and talk to you all about, what does this mean? What are your concerns? How can we help alleviate them? We just didn't have time. We needed to move quickly so we could save lives. But we're here now, and we're happy to hear we're not happy to hear your concerns, but we will hear your concerns, and we're happy to address them. But we hope that we can continue this partnership. So I will stop talking now and take questions.
That's an excellent summary. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that information. I don't know that anybody had concerns about the locating the men's shelter there. I think the concerns were more about future, long-term plans for the folks that are going to be there. So let's see. Does anybody have any questions specifically about this subject for Ms. Harris?
Yes, I do.
We actually have 4 raised hands as well, Ginger. So I don't know what order you want to go with. We have Ilhan, Annie, Becky, Lynn Westrop, and then I heard another person, I believe, say something.
Yeah.
That was Jeff at the end.
Yes. Can I go?
Okay, go.
Yeah, I'll go. So yeah, thank you for coming and presenting that, Amanda. I appreciate it. I have to say that's the first communication I received on the that situation at the rec center. I was, quite disappointed with how that all precipitated. I was hoping that we would have higher level of community engagement before and during that process. I didn't find out about it until well after it had occurred. And, I'm a community gardener up there, and I ran into some folks that were looking for some money on the bridge. And I tried to figure out what was going on. And it was just kind of disappointing. So just as far as the engagement goes before and even after, just the notification to the community. I hope we can work together to do better in the future. I guess my one question is, what is the criteria that is going to be evaluated to determine that the rec center goes back to its intended purpose?
So that would be a decision by the health officer when we start to reopen things. So I can't speak to the specifics of what is the criteria, but that's what we're looking at.
So who is the decision maker in that process?
Dr. Gales, the public health officer, he would make recommendations to the county executive, who would then have the final say of when things will reopen. So I just want to let me just be clear, there are no plans right now to take over permanently the rec center. We are not, no one has said that. There are no plans to do that. We are actively looking for a permanent facility.
Well, I would hope that goes without saying. However, just how this all precipitated, it makes me very nervous, to be honest with you. So, I just,
yeah.
I guess that's my comment.
And I fully appreciate that. And, yes, that's not how we want to do things. And I apologize for that.
I think we should also just keep in mind that this was an unexpected event, and this is certainly not how we normally proceed with opening new shelters. But this was a rapidly blowing up situation with the pandemic. So I think under the circumstances, it's a little understandable there. Now let's move on to some of the other folks who have their hands raised. I think Annie Tolkien, Ilhan Kagri, Becky Lavash, and Lynn Restrove in that order. So Annie, do you have a question for Ms. Harris?
Yeah. Hi, Amanda.
Sure.
So here's my question. So we have a daughter. We go over to the wooded area a lot with her because we were all at home for many months looking for places to go. And the other side of that too is that I do a lot of jogging and biking and stuff along that corridor. And so I guess I have a couple questions. Are there any day services that are offered for the gentlemen who are at the shelter, or is it just nighttime kind of check-in, sleeping there, and then they get pushed out in the daytime? So that's my first question.
Okay, let me answer that. Oh, it's very echoey. So the shelter is open 24/7. So we are not kicking people out during the day. There is also 24/7 security. So there is security on site, and they also at times go out and patrol the outside area. So yes, there are activities during the day.
Okay, and then with the security that's patrolling the outside area, are they around the perimeter of the building, or does that reach into the wooded area? The reason I ask that is because there are a lot of men loitering in the daytime in the woods, and I don't know that they are a part of the population that's using the shelter, but it seemed to kind of ramp up during the COVID time, and I just wondered if there was any association.
And just to be clear, there's just a lot of people, a lot of beer bottles, a mattress, there's been a major sort of uptick in that. So it's impossible to know, but it did seem the uptick in drinking beer and mattresses and fires seemed to coincide with the shelter. So if there's anything that could be done to sort of try to address, educate, rein in, or I don't know, extend the security sort of monitoring a little bit farther into the park. It does seem like there's been more of an issue around that.
So we can certainly look into that. If there are mattresses out there, I don't think it's the same people that are staying in the shelter because they would have a place to stay in the shelter. But it often happens that when there is a shelter, there are other people that kind of gather around. I can look into the security. I mean, they're not currently going into the wooded area. That's really, I mean, they're primarily inside monitoring. They do make some efforts to check the perimeter. And the other thing I can do is I can ask our street outreach teams to step up their efforts in the community, because that would really be more their role to work with the people that are sleeping outside. So I can certainly alert them and ask them to frequent the area more often.
And since we know that homeless populations, especially shelter populations, are at higher risk for COVID, are there also testing services that are going on in the shelter? Okay, there are. Okay.
Yes, we test everyone at intake, and then we test every facility once a month. We do a universal testing of everyone.
Elaine, Elaine, we could hear your outcry.
Look,
That is far more than most places are doing.
I'm trying to participate through that, and I can't even get my question that I formulated 15 minutes ago sent to everyone. What's the deal here? Because I have questions I want to ask about this shelter. Which
we can hear you now. So if you want to, I mean, I'm not trying to.
All in favor of bumping Elaine to the front of the queue, say aye, aye.
Oh, Josh, that's the last time you're going to get a donation.
I was being earnest.
Go right ahead, Elaine. Go right ahead.
Look, on these once a month testing doesn't seem adequate to me, because testing is good to tell you only what's happened on the day that you test the person. You don't know how prevalent the COVID is in that facility if you test only once a month. I think you need to do it more often. Also, I think that the community could have been notified about the change in status of this shelter through the listserv. And I do question you, Madam Amanda, Ms. Harris, why you did not contact the heads of the various community associations in this immediate area and tell them what was going on. That is really a dereliction of duty. You also have an extensive apartment complex right next to the community center in which there are a lot of children. Children are cooped up. They can't go to school. And the children, you know, they play around the apartment buildings. The men are on the bridge, as Jeff Williams said. And some men, maybe those are not the shelter men, but maybe they're the camper men who have the mattresses in the woods. And we've been notifying the county about that for several months. But I really do think it was a dereliction of duty. And I do think that you need to be in better contact with the communities in which you make these rather serious changes. And please, more testing. Thank you.
I think that more testing is going to be more money, and money is already quite tight. But obviously the county. Hang on, Elaine, it's okay. The county has to balance between money, which they don't necessarily have, and testing, which they do need to do. So I think it's good to bring that up so that Ms. Harris is aware that the community feels that the folks in these shelters probably would be served better by an increased frequency of testing. I think we all agreed on that. But whether the county can support that, that's not our purview. And that's something that would go to the Department of Health. So I think points well taken there, Elaine. Thank you for bringing those up. I hate to cut you short, but I want to be able to bring this over to, I know Ilhan had already had a chance to talk. or a question. I'll get back to you, Ilhan. I'll get back to Becky. How about Lynn Westrope? Can we get your question, Lynn?
Yes, please. I think I'm pretty embarrassed that I didn't know that we're talking about the Long Branch Community Center. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, correct.
Now, I used to frequent that place a lot until I had to have surgery and I couldn't go to the gym anymore, but it was heavily used by all kinds of community groups during the day, including the gym. And what is that closed to all services for our community? And if it is, then
Yes.
where do we go? And what, I mean, I'm just astounded that this has happened. And I do read the listserv, but I didn't know this was being taken away from us.
So it is not being taken away from you. We are temporarily using it. And
It sure
all
sounds
the,
like it to me.
so all the recreational facilities are closed at this time. So none of them are in operation right now. So
Because of the pandemic.
because of the pandemic,
Okay.
that is
All right.
correct.
Exactly.
That is correct.
Otherwise, we would be holding our meetings at the usual locations, but all of the public locations were closed when we went into lockdown across the state of Maryland.
Right. So then when we move to phase 3, for example, what happens to this shelter or phase 4, which could be like next year?
That's what Amanda was saying. There's ongoing discussions on that. And if Amanda or someone in her office can keep us all updated by sending an email to the listserv, I think that would probably be very helpful. Okay.
Yes.
Because nobody really knows the answer. It's an excellent question. We don't have any answers for that right now because nobody really knows what's going to happen. We all talk about the next phase, and they're kind of it's on a case-by-case basis. Every county is being different in Maryland. So I hate to cut that one short. So Becky, do you still have a question?
I have many of my questions have been addressed. I have one comment. I have two comments. One, a lot of the reason, Amanda Harris, that we're having around this is there is a recent molestation problem at the elementary school in our neighborhood in the woods by what is presumably a homeless man. So people are very, very nervous about this right now. That now there's a bunch of guys there. And I don't think anyone's saying that the homeless men don't deserve a place to live or that we begrudge them that. But we're concerned. That's why the questions about who's watching them and what's going on, because we've already had a problem. And we want to avoid that. That was comment 1. Comment 2 is if you and I can exchange emails and you can inform me for our community what's going on, and I can get messages on the listserv. And I also know that the county maintains a civic association database with the connection contact people for everybody, which if you don't know about, I'm happy to show you. But if we can exchange emails, I can see your Amanda.Harris @ and then it disappears.
Just like every other county address, so Montgomery County MD.gov. But yes, I'm happy to reach out to you. Yes.
I will kick off an email tonight.
Excellent. And then Ilhan, did you have any more questions that haven't been answered yet?
Yeah, just a quick question. First of all, just a quick comment. I have to say I'm really impressed with my neighborhood that yes, whereas the concerns are real, everybody was very empathetic, especially during this time. And the fact that you spoke about these quote unquote gentlemen with compassion really made me feel very proud of this community. So I have to say, I got goosebumps thinking about it. So I'm just really, really privileged to be living in this kind of a neighborhood where we're not jerks and jackasses. So anyway, Amanda, my question is, what about food? What are we doing in terms of food for these people? And I do want to second this thing about testing once a month is ridiculous. I mean, and food and masks. Those are the two things I wanted to ask about.
Okay. So as far as food, the meals are catered and they are brought to the shelter daily. They get breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They also have laundry that is being done for them there. And then as far as the testing, I can appreciate the concern. Just to reiterate, we are testing everyone as they come in. So it isn't just once a month. All new clients are tested. Anyone who is brand new, they actually are in a different facility that is specifically for new intakes. They are quarantined for 14 days before they move into the shelter. We are also every single day, multiple times a day, doing symptom checks. So they do temperature checks. They run through the list of COVID symptoms. Anyone that has symptoms will be tested right away. We are not waiting for the mass testing. And we have, to date, we have a less than 2% positivity rate in all our shelters. So what we are doing is working. We have not actually had, we may have had one person test positive at the Long Branch, but I don't think so. I would have to verify, but definitely not more than one at that particular facility. So while it would be great to be able to test people more frequently, what we are doing is working. We also make sure that they are maintaining distancing. They all have masks. They have to wear masks 24, well, not 24/7. They have to wear masks except when they're sleeping. That's the only time that they can't wear them. So we are doing everything that we can. I actually feel safer going into the shelter than I feel going into the grocery store, because at least I know that these folks have been tested and they're wearing masks. So that's what I have to say about the testing. But thank you for your concern.
Thank you very much for taking the time to thoroughly answer all the questions. I know we have lots more, but we also have Officer Joy Bartholomew. I don't want to keep her around too much longer. So I'm going to ask everybody, if you didn't have your questions answered by Ms. Harris or Tom Hucker, please email myself, Cecilia, or even Becky, or put them on the listserv. We'll gather them, we'll forward them to Amanda and to Tom. But again, thank you very much. I know Tom's already headed out, but thank you very much, Amanda. And if you need to go, please feel free to do so. And we'll turn this over now to Joy Bartholomew, who hopefully can update us with some positivity on the policing and crime and whatnot. So go ahead, Joy.
Luncheon.
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay? Thumbs up. Okay. So I got some information from the crime analysts for this evening, so I did want to share that. Most of the issues looking at the crime statistics have been theft from vehicles, which are continuing just throughout the county, throughout the district. It's nothing new. He said there were no trends or patterns, just more random episodes. There was a question in regards to some incidents at in the woods. We do have 2 sex offense issues that occurred in the area of the elementary school on East Wayne Avenue. One was in June, middle of June, one was early July. There has been an arrest made for both of those incidents. From what I was able to get from the report, it was about a 30-year-old Hispanic male who was involved in both of those incidents, and an arrest was made and a closure was made in both of those. So, you know, good work being done, and we were able to get a positive identification on both of those. We have had some recent stolen vehicles, people popping in to, what word I'm looking for, pick up food delivery, and they leave their cars running. Please don't do that, because we're finding we're getting some stolen vehicles in that regard as well. Otherwise, our staffing is up. We're up to full staff. We're, you know, are doing some minimal traffic. You know, nothing unless there's an egregious situation. Just trying to make sure that everybody, since the roads are still a little light, so we're basically responding for calls for service. So if you see something that isn't quite right, give us a call, the emergency number or 911 if it rises to that level. And we're happy to have officers come out, but otherwise we're kind of just doing some low-level patrols, and we really just haven't seen a lot of spike in violent crimes, but definitely some property crimes. So just be mindful with your vehicles, bicycles, cars, things like that.
Oh, thank you, Officer Bartholomew. We just saw your comment.
Are there any questions? Any questions?
Keep in mind that since Officer Bartholomew's internet is having a little difficulty tonight, and it's not your fault, Joy, don't worry about it. There's always going to be somebody with technical problems. If you can hear the question, great. If you can hear the questions, we'll try to email them. Again, everybody, I think we have a couple of hands raised. Hang on, let me see the list again. Let's see, I just scrolled past it. Where are the hands raised?
It's Annie, Lynn, Westgroup, and Miriam.
Okay. Okay, yeah, go ahead. Annie, why don't you go ahead and see if Joy can answer your question, or if we have to go to email.
Sure. Joy, you mentioned that 2 people had been apprehended in the sexual assault cases around Oakview Elementary School. I can hear myself echoing. It's kind of weird. And I had read in the media accounts that at least one of those person identified as a homeless man. And I guess I wondered if there was a connection between the homeless men's shelter, and if we know if that gentleman had been housed at the homeless shelter at the Long Branch Community Center or not, or do we know?
I don't have any information on where he was housed prior. It was just the fact that he was a homeless individual, is all I know.
Is there a way to find out if that person was being housed at that shelter?
I can check with the detectives and see if they have any further information, any background information on where he was prior.
Great. I think that would be helpful to know.
Sure, of course.
Okay, and who is our next question person? Let's see. Lynn Westrope, did you have a question?
No, I didn't, but Ginger, I will be in contact with you independently. Thank you.
Super, thank you. Okay, and how about Miriam Yarmolinsky? Did you have a question for Officer Bartholomew?
Oh, that was old hand. That was just previous speaker. Thanks for sharing.
Oh, sorry.
And just wanted to say our nonprofit has an excess of cotton masks, and we're looking to coordinate with local resources to hand them out. So, but I can contact Amanda later. So I think that's
all
it.
right.
Thanks.
That sounds like a good plan. Thanks, Miriam.
Hit Angel just raised her hand.
Yeah, Ginger, I seem to have lost your sound.
Oh, sorry. I must have hit the wrong button. Sorry. I went to unmute and muted myself. Anyway, so yes, you can email us the questions. I think we've taken up enough of Officer Bartholomew's time, and we have to move along on our agenda too. So email us the questions. I'll forward them to Officer Bartholomew, and she will email us the updates and anything that she finds out about the shelter issue. Okay? Thank you so much, Joy. It's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you, Dr.
You're welcome.
Bartholomew.
Thank you, Dr. Bartholomew. Okay, so now next on the agenda, finally back to some normal business. Sudip, do you have our treasurer's report?
Yes, I do. I'm happy to report that our account balance is pretty healthy, relatively speaking. We have an account right now of $2,833.14. We currently have 82 active member households, given that we have roughly 1,000 households in the community, that represents roughly 8%. Our hope was, of course, to increase that percentage dramatically this year, but given the pandemic, that has been quite difficult, as you can all imagine. I do want to thank everybody who has paid dues during what has been a very trying and difficult time. We had a very successful membership uptick a couple of months ago. We were very pleased to see that. We also understand that it's difficult for a lot of people to pay dues right now. And I know Becky wanted me to especially point out that if there's anybody who can't pay dues at the time but wants to vote in an upcoming SBCA election, please do let us know. Let Ginger know, or Cecilia, or any of us. And we are very accommodating and happy to consider all kinds of circumstances. So thank you all, and back to you, Ginger.
Awesome, thank you. Yes, as Sudip said, we're more than willing to be lenient in time of, oh, how nice, the check marks there. In this time, since we're doing everything online. But also I want to point out that we may not be able to do anything person to person right now, so that our Halloween, for example, will have to be virtual, and the chili cook-off may have to be virtual for the time being, but we can still bank everything against the future, and we can also use this for other things that we support the community as well. So don't think that the money will just sit around being unused. We can put something together for future use. Okay. So Annie, did you have any other Purple Line action updates for us that you wanted to share, or did we already cover everything?
I think we covered most of it. Just a quick aside, when the letter, I'll put the letter out on the listserv so everybody can see what was submitted. And I'll also provide contact info as well. So if people want to write more supplementary letters, and just to thank, a number of community members actually wrote personal letters, which we will attach to our submission as well. And I guess maybe this is something that I can touch base with you, Ginger, offline, but I guess I wondered if the Sligo-Branview Community Association also wanted to write a letter on behalf of the community too, maybe echoing some of the things that are in the letter that I'm sending. So we can figure that out, and I'll get back to you, and we can navigate that process, I guess.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of support for the community to, not just as an individual, but as a whole, to write some letters in support of the Purple Line resolution in a more community-friendly manner, shall we say. Okay, so that's Purple Line action. Now, one of the things we had hoped to talk about was, because of the pandemic, everybody's doing a lot of stuff at home, online, and one of the things is kids are in school online. Is there a community need for a community homeschooling network, or even just a network of parents, or not necessarily just parents, but caregivers, anybody with an interest in helping homeschoolers? I homeschooled my son years ago, long before the pandemic, but it's certainly a different time. So I'd like to know if anybody has any interest in this, and if so, what kind of interest do you have? What kind of needs do we have? Do we need to poll the community, or should we just do this, do the listserv? Let's open this up for some discussion here. Anybody want to raise their hand, and then we'll take questions or comments in order.
And here to lead this discussion too, Ginger. Well, maybe Kent will kick me under the table for saying that. I don't know.
Who's getting kicked under the table? Kent's waving.
Are you muted?
Okay. Yeah, that was a pretty quiet response to the homeschooling thing. So I guess, oh, look at that. We have a demonstration for homeschooling. Excellent. Okay, so email Kent on homeschooling. That's awesome.
And hand as well.
And Kent, do you want to briefly explain why you're being supportive of homeschooling? This is a long-held dream of yours to be a homeschool network leader, or what?
Oh, I actually have been. I was in the 90s and early 2000s. I did my 5 kids homeschooling up through high school. So I have a neighbor here, Julie Finkel. She does homeschooling. I'm sure there's a lot of the people that do homeschooling. So if there are people out there who are looking to maybe even look at what that means, you can homeschool me, and I mean, you can email me and I can give you information. I have a lot of questions to Julie because she's doing it right now. All my kids are adults, so they're on their own. But there's so many questions about what it means in time-wise and the kids themselves and socialization and such like that. Those are all easy to answer. And so if you have any questions, you can ask me, but I do have other people that, like I said, Julie Finkel right up the street from me is putting things together. And I can always have her send you information about the local support groups, the local pods, and just what it means to be a homeschool parent and what it means, you know, at this time frame, because this time frame really opens up that as a question. So much things are going on with this era of COVID. But I think if anyone has a question, they can always email me like I have there in the chat area, and I can open up that to pointing them in the direction of where some answers can be given to them.
That's super, and that's really helpful. I know when I homeschooled, when we homeschooled our son, we didn't have a lot of this support.
Yeah.
So that's really, really critical to have that kind of existing network to piggyback on. Jared Brown and Patty Carey have raised their hands. So Jared, would you like to ask your question?
Oh, maybe Jared dropped off the call.
Or he's on mute.
Who knows?
Well, he disappeared off the list, so I guess we'll move on.
Sorry, I'm good. Thanks. Sorry.
Oh,
I'm doing two things.
Is here. Okay.
There you are. Go ahead.
No, Patty can go. Sorry, I'm juggling things here. You're good.
He's good. He said he's good.
All right. Okay, Patty, you want to go ahead and ask your question or make your comment?
Sure. So my kids are not homeschooled, but they are doing school online. And I know for a lot of our kids in the neighborhood, when that 3:15, when they're done and off Zoom, my kids are Zooming out of the house literally and want to play outside. And so they are going to the creek and biking in the streets. And so I was just wanted to advocate for safety in the neighborhood in terms of people driving their vehicles in a safe manner, because I'm letting my kids go out there and bike, which maybe I wouldn't otherwise do with my younger kids, but they need that outside time and they're craving it. So just advocating for folks to just be conscientious in the neighborhood and be mindful of, you know, kids on bikes and scooters and other things. And, you know, since the activities, I'm not letting them go to playgrounds, but, you know, the creek and biking are great ways to get out that energy after sitting in front of a computer all day.
Yeah, one thing around here is the Sudbury Greenway. I'm sure there's something on the other side, but the Sudbury Greenway really does help. I'm right on that. I'm on Sudbury, and I see people walking and biking and jogging. We normally have that, but it's so much more now. It's really nice. So it's a very flat area too, and there's almost no traffic because it is, quote, the Greenway, where it's only local traffic. So if anyone has kids who want to go ahead and have that time, you might need to obviously check in on them. But older kids can take that advantage of the Sudbury Greenway that we have here.
Excellent point. And yes, Patty, if you see at any time that you feel that traffic is being unsafe in your area, please do let us know. Officer Bartholomew will send out cars, you know, patrol cars to sit and watch and make sure that cars are not being driven unsafely through the neighborhood. So she takes that very seriously, and so do I, and actually, you know, everybody who lives here. So that's an excellent thing to raise, and I do want you to know that we do have resources available for that. So just keep us informed. If you see a trend developing, let us know right away. Anybody else have any questions? Go ahead. Oh, that's it. Anybody else have any questions or comments about homeschooling? Kent's put his email on there, and we will also try to post all this information on listserv. Anybody else have any questions on that homeschooling or comments on this topic? No? Okay. How about Cecilia? You get to talk about the virtual Halloween events. I know this is near and dear to a lot of people's hearts. Take it away.
And thanks, Ginger. And I'll keep this as short as possible since it's getting late in the evening. But as you know, we always try to make a big deal out of Halloween every year. Because of the pandemic, we're not able to do our party in the park or our parade like we usually do. When we did our survey in the summer of the community, there was really very little for doing some in-person Halloween stuff. But we started putting our heads together and gathering ideas from Facebook and the listserv, and we came up with some ideas like bringing back a pumpkin carving contest, having a house decorating contest, and having 2 types of mask contests. So we wanted to run this by everybody and get some input from the people at the meeting tonight, because what our idea is to run these activities through the month of October, culminating at Halloween. And people could let us know if they want to enter a pumpkin or if they want their house in the decorating contest. And then we will have judges, which is what my kind of tongue-in-cheek comment about, are you feeling judgmental? Because we need event judges, and you can judge all events or just 1 or 2. But we thought it'd be fun because people could put their pumpkins out and judges could walk around and look at them and score them, etc. Same with the house contest. And then for best mask, since we're living through a pandemic, we have to have personal protection equipment, and we all have to wear masks. We see more and more people trying to have fun with it, decorating them, sparkles, putting their name on it, or a picture of their mouth or something like that. So we thought that might be kind of a fun thing to help us get through this strange period in time. So we could also add a costume contest, and people could maybe pose in their costume and put a picture somewhere, or we could just like have the judges look at your costume on Halloween. We also wanted to share a couple of tips and ideas on trick-or-treating. That's a big issue here because of contact and interaction. What some people have said they were going to do is just buy individually wrapped candies, of course, and just leave them out and let the kids take them. Or one clever idea was somebody recommended they were going to use clothespins and pin them up on a line 6 feet apart and let the kids take them on their own. So there are some fun ways you can still do trick-or-treating if you'd like. We also have heard, I have not personally reached out to them, but Long Branch community is going to have a parade this year because we're not. So I guess they've been coming to ours all this time. So those are some of the things that we're planning to do. We're happy to add a couple more or get some input on how we could do these, but we just thought it would also be a nice way to give people a reason to walk around and look at who's in what contest.
So I guess I have a question for you, Cecilia. If we're going to have people walking around and looking at the houses or pumpkins or whatever, what kind of time frame are we looking at? It's going to be just that day? Is it going to be like a 3-day weekend or what?
Oh, that's a great question. My idea was that we would have about a 3-week period that people could enter throughout that 3 weeks up until, let's say, October 30th. And then the judges would also have that time to go around and look at everything. Now, we would have to have some sort of a deadline, I guess, timing, just so we would know within a certain amount of time so that the judges would have time to go around and look at everybody's pumpkins and homes and masks and things. I know people have different opinions about sharing sharing photos and things like that online and videos. So we're trying to find like the best way to do it. So that was kind of what I was thinking. We have like a 2 or 3 week window, and then you could put your things out and the judges could come around and look at it. So how does that sound to the group? Does that sound like a good way to handle it?
Yes.
Great. Oh, and I see somebody answered Mara's question about where exactly is the lunch. Which to me is kind of on the other side of Wayne Avenue down Flower toward Tiny Branch, as Ginger said. So were there any other suggestions about Halloween?
Well, Amy, who says she's new to the neighborhood, she's never seen the parade, but wouldn't it be somewhat easy to socially distance in a parade? And that is true. I think Cecilia had polled the community. Did you poll them on whether you wanted the parade, that we wanted the parade?
And it was a lukewarm reception, which is why we decided not to do it. And there was opposition to the party in the park. So Amy, I'm sorry you have never seen one of our awesome parades. We usually have a wizard and somebody from the Mounted Police Division of Montgomery County Police. And last year we had a great costume contest for the kids. And but we decided there was not a lot of enthusiasm for it at the time we did the survey. So
Cecilia, I just think it's fatigue. I think everybody's just so drowned. Otherwise there have been, sort of demonstrations where people have, paraded and everything. I think people are just, there's so much weight on everybody's shoulders that that was the only reason, I'm sure.
And I think, and I think that, how fun is it to watch a parade where everybody's standing 6 to 8 feet apart? And at that point, does it actually look like a parade anymore, or just a bunch of people taking a walk? So, the fun part is gone at that point as well. So we want to try to bring some fun into Halloween this year too. So, and I see Patty Carey, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, so during the summer, someone in the community had organized we're going on a bear hunt and had that interactive Google map, and my kids loved it in terms of, we were able to get out on a weekend and bike around and kind of follow the map. So I don't know if maybe that's possible with people who are going to do the house decorating contest to maybe have it like linked to a Google map, and just a great way for people to walk or bike around the community to, get out and see different houses or maybe explore different streets that they're not familiar with. So I just wanted to throw that idea out there, and my kids are super excited for the house decorating contest. So thanks for putting something together.
Oh, sure. Welcome. That's a great idea. We all loved the bear. I know I participated in it and had more than bears in my window. So
yeah, same here. So that was an excellent idea. Yeah, definitely. So who will volunteer to do the map effort part? Because that was the hardest part, I think. Who was it that did the mapping the first time? Does anybody remember?
This is Becky, and I'm going to offer to work with somebody else who would like to do it.
Oh, great. Thank you, Becky.
Amy. Amy has volunteered.
Well, Amy,
thank you, Amy.
I'm going to get to know you, Amy.
Oh, great. Thank you, Amy. Amy, Halloween is how I got sucked into this madness too. So just be aware.
Yes, that's how everybody gets sucked into this. Okay, so that's awesome. So we've got some things to do, and I think that's a great idea, Patty, of having the kids go around. It's just like a bear hunt. It's going to be this time. It's going to be, I don't know, pumpkin hunt or a house hunt or a Halloween hunt. And what do you find at each of these locations? And then maybe we can have something else, common signage and communication method about houses that are open and closed. Well, the map will help take care of that, Jared, because it was kind of decided how to do the bears and the signage and the location. So, but if you have any suggestions on that, definitely send that along. And Miriam is volunteering to make a flyer. So we've already got some volunteers here. So yes, definitely. Let's work together on this so that Cecilia isn't the only one handling the Halloween event this year. That's awesome. Very good. I'm so happy that people are volunteering to help. All right. So,
flyer, excellent.
Cecilia, yeah, go ahead.
No. Oh, what did I just do? I am not wanting. I'm sorry. I hit the wrong button.
Go back up. Go back up. There we go. Yay. Okay.
Okay.
So,
great.
Yes. Okay. So we have done any other comments, Cecilia, on the Halloween events?
No, I just want to thank the current volunteers, and I'll be sharing information over the next few days so that everybody kind of knows what we're doing and get a sign-up sheet for volunteer judges, etc.
Excellent. In your vast, copious amounts of free time, I'm sure, Cecilia. All right. So, so during the time period, last couple of months, we had one board member, trustee, stepped down, and another one has asked to also potentially step down if we can find two people willing to volunteer to become trustees. So we are opening the call for nominations, I believe, for definitely one and possibly two new board members. If anybody would like to volunteer, please let us know either tonight or over the next couple of days. And maybe one of the current trustees can talk about what it's like to be a trustee and not just a president, vice president, secretary, or treasurer. Anybody want to volunteer to explain that one?
I guess.
Yeah, go ahead, Becky. You know everything.
Mara said she didn't have a mic, so.
Mara doesn't have a mic.
Yeah.
So Mara can't talk right now, and Ken seems to have spent all his energy on the homeschooling thing. So I guess it's over to you, Becky.
It would only, these two positions would be for the remainder of the terms. It would be like a year.
Correct.
So being a trustee, you participate in the meetings, but you're not responsible for planning the meeting or making the agenda or balancing the budget or any of those things, but you need to show up in our board meetings, which are
online.
Right now they're online, 6-7 times a year. And then you would also need to participate in coming up with ideas for meetings, or maybe you would, if you knew someone who would be a good person to participate in a meeting, you might help do that. And invariably there's a certain amount of, if we're having an event, you might be asked to help, like if it was the Halloween parade, you would come help set up or take down or something. And Mara very cleverly put it, we did a SBCA board trivia team with the Long Branch business community. So we were a team for the trivia team. So there's some fun stuff too. Although we do have fun. I don't think it's I've been doing this for a while, and I think it's a fun, positive group of people we have, and everybody kind of wants to make things work. So I highly recommend it. A way to serve your community at a local level without taking a great deal of your time.
And Becky should know because she's basically served in every position, president, vice president, probably secretary, treasurer, and now as a trustee. So she knows all of it. And we're very lucky to have her here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just put in a brief plug as well. It's a great way to get to know your neighbors. You know, I have children who are now older, so I felt more connected to the community when they were young and in the schools, and then everybody kind of spreads out. So great way to get to know people you wouldn't otherwise necessarily interact with.
Excellent point. All right. Okay, so if we have no nominations right now, we will continue to take nominations via email or message or, you know, through other forms of media. Okay. Now, any comments? Sorry, is that a comment? Is somebody being muffled?
Oh.
Okay. All right. So the open forum, other topics and concerns. Ilhan, did you have anything remaining that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to I was going to say some good news. It's actually rather depressing news. So this is on the political level. A number of people in Tacoma Park, Silver Spring, and I were chatting about, you know, the elections and sort of the threat to our elections and our democracy. And we wanted to see what the Democrats were going to be doing about it, being very partisan here. And we arranged for a meeting with Jamie Raskin to ask him, look, are you guys, you know, what's your plan? Are you sort of being it seems to us that you're being very reactive. So I thought his response was really interesting, and I thought I'd share it with you guys because, and actually Trump alluded to it 2 days ago in a speech that he was giving. So what the Democrats are afraid of is that if it looks like Trump is going to lose in the Electoral College, that they will create a situation where states will, for some reason or other, not send their delegates to the Electoral College. And if Biden does not get the 270 votes that he needs, then the election will go to the House of Representatives, where it's one vote per state. So California gets 1 vote and Wyoming will get 1 vote. And what was really interesting is that 2 days after our meeting with Jamie is when Trump came out and said, vote twice, vote by mail, and then go in and vote in person. And of course, by the time you figure out that mess, you do have a mess. And that would give North Carolina an excuse not to send their electors in, for example. And just 2 days ago, Trump said, no, you know what? It's going to go to the House. And in the House, we've got, 28 to their 18 or whatever numbers he said. But he's clearly counting. And he said, 1 vote per state. So he's clearly looking at that angle. So I just thought I would bring that happy sort of possibility to your attention. And it's called a contingent election.
Yeah, I believe Nancy Pelosi just talked about that too. She's trying to make sure the Democrats are all out there working together on all the ballots, not just the swing states. So it is a very important time for our democracy, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. As depressing as it may be, it's still something that we need to talk about. Although I think we're pretty lucky to be in Maryland. We're a pretty blue state with some red spots in it. We pretty much know how the state's going to go for the most part. I think it's the other states where they really have to worry. So important stuff, definitely.
Right.
Okay.
One other thing, if I could just add, one of the things he did say is that in the people that actually saved the post office were the Postal Workers Union people, and that there are, in the hundreds of thousands, and they're the ones that blew the whistle. They're the ones that sort of prevented it from happening, and that we should be very, very grateful for our postal workers for doing that.
Absolutely. And perhaps this year for Christmas and Boxing Day, we could probably try to help out our postal carriers as much as possible, if not before then. Absolutely, definitely. And yes, Pete, you're right. Democrats did originally think of it, but this is, I believe it's already written up somewhere. It may not have been used before, but it's already been written up. So anyway, let's move on.
This law,
yeah.
Were you talking about the contingent election?
Yeah, Pete Sept had a
It's in the
comment.
80s. It was already used.
Yeah, exactly.
In the 80s, so it's
already. It's been used before. Yeah.
This is Becky. I think, however deeply I agree with you, we are a civic association. We need to be sort of nonpartisan. I mean, I agree that there's all kinds of problems. I do think we should try to phrase it in a nonpartisan manner in the civic association.
Becky, I agree with you that, I'm sorry I didn't keep it nonpartisan. I agree with you that I could have said it differently. I should have just put it out there as a possibility that the Republican Party might take, and some people might actually celebrate that. So yes, thank you for pointing that out.
I'm equally alarmed as you.
Okay, any more comments on this subject?
Not on this subject, Ginger, but we did have Jeff Williams had put in the
right
chat earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I just wanted to segue. Okay, so residential parking. Jeff Williams, if you're still there, do you have a question on residential parking?
Jeff, are you muted?
Jeff, are you still here?
Take a look under participants. Let's see. Nope, he seems to be gone. Okay, well, if anybody has any questions on residential parking, I do know that residential parking enforcement was suspended when we were in lockdown. And then as we started coming back out of lockdown, some of that stuff was rolling back out, but obviously not on a necessarily a very thorough basis. So as far as what that means for our community specifically, I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. But I would not assume that there is no enforcement at this point, although there may certainly be relaxed enforcement they're probably willing to let areas slide where there's not a huge number of problems. But if there's something going on, like, for example, an RV parked on a residential street, or a lot of people parking up in an area where there's permit parking, let us know, and we'll notify the parking enforcement office and see if they're in a position to do something about that. They may not be, they may be, I don't know yet. But if there are problems, let us know, and we'll do something about that. Okay? All right. So any other open forum topics for the time being? Do we have anybody else that we have any comments?
Hello, I have one. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, folks. I'm Adam. My wife, Amy, who just volunteered to do the Halloween maps. She's a mapping expert, so that's her thing. We just moved here in mid-March, and I just wanted to get on and say hello. We've been super happy with how friendly and helpful everyone is, how great the listserv is, the Buy Nothing group. It's just been a real pleasure to move here. And we have a 9-month-old daughter, so give us a wave if you see us around. And happy to be your neighbors. Hello.
Oh, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate that.
What street
That's
do you live
awesome.
on, Adam?
We live on East Melbourne. We're at 105, so we are talking of RVs who park in the neighbourhood. Apparently, the previous occupant here used to park his RV in the driveway. So if you remember that, that's where we are now. And if you did not like the RV in the driveway, you'll be happy to know that we only have a wee Ford Fiesta. So it's definitely an improvement for some folks.
Wow. Well,
all right. Well,
I don't think you're far from me. I live right at the corner of Nitwood and East Melbourne.
Great. And thank you, Maura. Sorry if I'm butchering your name there, for the compliment.
And I just want to point out that Adam is actually an American, but he knows that if he fakes this accent, we'll all fall in love with him.
That's
So
true.
he does this all the time. It's not, he has a perfect, he's American, but he knows
Gets me out of all sorts of trouble. And technically I am American too, because I've been a citizen for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Well, we don't discriminate based on where you're originally from. My wife is from Ukraine, so, you know.
Cool.
And my family, my father's family is Irish, so, you know, how you doing? Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm Donna. I'm new to the group. I'm just curious. Is anyone on right now live in top of the park? Because I live in top of the park.
That's an excellent question. Sorry, can you say that again? Because I'm having trouble hearing your connection.
Okay. I'm curious to see anyone on right now lives in top of the park. I live in top of the park.
Okay.
Which is part of Sligo-Branview.
Yes. Yeah,
I'm just curious.
I don't know, Donna, you might be our only actual member from Top of the Park right now as well. So welcome. I don't think we have anybody else on this call though that's from Top of the Park. So thank you for joining us. So what can we do for Top of the Park?
Move down to Top of the Park.
Move there? How could
we have a pool even though we couldn't use it?
Oh, well, we could look at it. It'd be pretty. but Donna, we often talk about how we can serve our community members who do live in larger buildings like Top of the Park. So what's a good way we could get more people from Top of the Park involved?
No, our buildings are not large. We're townhouses.
You're the townhouses, so you're not the tall building. Oh, well, that's even easier then. Well, what can we do for Top of the Park to make you guys?
Well, we have some of the same issues. For example, like with the homeless, because we backed into Sligo Creek Parkway, and there's a field back there, and they congregate and sleep there, but it's not our property. It belongs to Park and Planning. So we've been working with Tom Hucker and some other people. Same thing with the businesses. We're very much in line with the businesses on Flower Avenue, plus also the Purple Line, because we're very close to Wayne Avenue. And the trucks coming through on Manchester Road is horrendous, etc. You know, so we have some of the same issues that you have.
Great. Okay. Well, I mean, not great that you have issues, but that's a commonality.
Right. Yeah, it's not great that you have issues.
But also, I'd like to put a plug in for those of you who vote at Highland View Elementary, which is not going to be a voting place. I am vice precinct chair for 1313. So if you have any questions about voting, no matter what party, even though I'm supposed to be with the other party, I'd be more than glad to answer any questions.
Well,
That's super.
Because I'm always on the prowl. How would you like, are you interested in being a board?
I can't hear you, Becky.
Speak up.
You to be a board member, Donna, because we have two.
I can't, not at this point.
Yes. Oh, because one of the things we need most is representation from the other parts of the neighborhood. A couple of years ago, we had somebody from Flower Branch Apartments, and we need somebody from Manchester Road. So Donna, if you could do us a huge, huge favor, reach out to your friends and neighbors right around you, find out if somebody wants to volunteer to be on the board. We would love to have you guys be a more active member, because you are part of our neighborhood. We just don't know how to reach out to you folks. We really, and if you could send me your email, you can email me directly at my first name dot last name ginger.tansey@gmail.com. And if you want, that way it'll be private. And if you can email me contact information, I'm sure some of the folks around there have you guys have organized already on some things, I'm sure. If not, then this is the time to start doing that. So
I'll check back with you in a couple of months. I have some medical issues I need to deal with right now.
Okay.
So I don't want to commit to anything.
Okay.
But I will check around.
Yeah, that would be
awesome.
Great. If you just have any suggestions without you having to do a lot of commitment, like if you hear something from a neighbor, you could pass it on to us. That would be really super helpful.
That would be super
Let me
helpful.
ask you this. Do you have a list of members who actually live in Top of the Park? Can you tell by the addresses?
We don't ask for the addresses when they join the listserv, but if you give an address when you pay your dues, then we might have it on the dues.
So Suited might have some of that information eventually, but not right now.
Okay, well, I'll check around. I know there is one other person, but I know she's busy because she's the one who told me about this.
Okay.
But I will check around.
Okay, good. And also, Donna, if you need any help from us on any specific issues, maybe it's getting handicap parking or reaching out to Tom Hucker or even to Officer Bartholomew for community police service stuff, let us know. Anyone on the board, myself directly, and we'll be happy to help you directly or the folks around you anytime. Just let us know.
Well, I think Tom knows us already. And so does Joy. I think they know us, but thank you so much for the offer.
That's great.
Okay, good.
Love it.
That is awesome. Well, I am so glad you came and at least we're talking here. So we'll look forward to that. Did you have something, Rebecca?
Yes, hi. Yes, I do. Nice to be a part of this. It's actually very good that it's being done on Zoom. Many years ago, I too was on the board, so I'm familiar with how it all works, or how it worked many years ago at least. But as some of you know, I have huge concerns about the plans thus far to expand the Beltway. And I try to send emails around when I hear of information or hear of news. And I'm just wondering if the board has ever discussed this. I know our community isn't right next door to it, but we're not far away, and it's going to have a massive impact on us. And I'm curious if the board has discussed this about having our community as a whole help the communities that are close by and help the people that are objecting to it.
The answer is yes, and probably we're not taking the lead on this because of CABE, Citizens Against the Beltway Expansion.
I know, yes, I'm a part of CABE.
Right, so they are already taking the lead on that. So those of us who are interested in fighting back against Beltway widening are usually just join CAVE. So it's a very good point. I think we should probably come back to that. It was not a high priority for a little while because of the purple line, but definitely it is one of our priorities. I wish I had more information for you right now. Yeah, do you need more Beltway expansion signs? I know Arlene Marchmarano had been handing those out.
No, yes, and I've been saying them, and then right now is the critical time for having letters sent. That time is going to be gone fairly soon. And for the board and our community to take a pivotal role and at least supporting CABE and other organizations. It's primarily CABE close by and CABE 270, but I haven't seen anything written to the community to encourage people to get involved.
I think
from the board.
Point taken.
On that.
Okay, we can.
And this is Josh Tolkien. I can pop in for 1 second. For those who don't know me, I work for the Maryland Sierra Club, and we are generating community comments for the draft environmental impact statement that many organizations and community associations will be given the option to sign on to. So we will definitely share those with the board, and they'll be very, very comprehensive. I will be happy to send around guidelines for anybody who wanted to write either a personal letter or join a forum on other ways to get involved.
And also, all this information will be available through the listserv. All the stuff we talked about tonight. So the top of the park stuff, the Flower Avenue, everything that Homeless Center, everything will be available on the listserv. So if you guys are not already members of the listserv, email me or Becky or Cecilia.
Well, we all are. We all are members of the listserv, and we send out information. But of course I am.
Okay.
But
I want to make sure that everybody is. I just want to make sure.
I just would like the board to take some action, and the action has to be taken now. I mean, this has been going on for several years, and we're getting to the end of it. At least as some of the news is right now of giving our opinions and trying to take a strong stand against it. And I just think it might be helpful as a community, we show our support as a community to CABE and other organizations.
Rebecca, are you saying you want the board to send a letter to somebody or somehow?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Becky. Say that again.
It must be on mute, somehow muted.
No, it's just muffled.
Oh, yes, sorry about that.
From your microphone.
Yeah, my computer is less than
That's better.
Are you saying you would like the board to send a letter? Is that what you're asking for?
To the listserv?
I'm asking what are you asking for, Rebecca?
To send a letter to the listserv, is that what you're saying?
I'm asking.
No. She's saying, sorry. What she's.
I'm asking.
What?
Yeah, what
hang
are
on
you?
a second, Rebecca.
Right.
What Rebecca is asking is for the board to send a letter to the governor on the fact that the community supports no expansion of the Beltway. Is that correct, Rebecca?
No, actually I wasn't, but that would be a great idea.
Okay, who do you want us to send?
You're ahead of me. That would be great. And or just to the listserv, to the people in our community. I've been trying to
want
send.
Us to stir up,
exactly.
Okay.
I constantly am sending things when I get them from CABE and to those that are interested, because we're supposed to be apolitical, and I understand all that. But I just think neighbors need to know what's going on, and I don't know that people do or don't. There's only so much a little thing. Well, look at CABE, look at this, but I don't know that people really understand what the impact of this could be.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we're running out of time to do this. There's only till
Sure.
November to send in letters,
Well,
and after that, decision may be made.
Well, and what we need is a walking tour of the Indian Spring neighborhood so that people can actually see how much of that neighborhood's going to disappear if they expand the Beltway. We walk over there quite a lot. We walk our dogs, and I imagine how far that Beltway expansion is going to come into the Indian Spring. It's going to come almost all the way up to Indian Spring Parkway, is my understanding. And so all those homes are gone.
Yes, that whole road.
Gone. Y is gone. Everything gone. No tennis court, no community center in Indian Spring. And that's why we have to stop this. The environmental impact is off the chart. I'm sure you talk about that more than me, but that's why my consulting company signed the letter. But that's the whole thing. It's like, where does good telecommuting or community planning collide with quality of life for a neighborhood? And our quality of life is going to be destroyed. And as Becky Lavash has pointed out on several occasions, we're next. If they take Indian Spring, we're next. And they should take Indian Spring.
Right, and we're sandwiched between these two massive projects. I mean, the Purple Line is honestly is a disaster right now.
Oh my God!
And this, of course, this is going to be a disaster as well.
Hey, remember the big dig in Boston? This is our big dig.
Right.
And a big hole in the ground right now. I've been against the Purple Line. I never wanted it built because I looked ahead and I saw this is exactly what would happen. I never wanted purple. That's why I moved here. I got chased out of my other home in my other neighborhood because of the Purple Line. So that's why I'm here. And it's terrible. We fought it. Our other home association fought it for 35 years.
I actually happen to agree with you, but I'm not going to go there at all because I totally agree. I'm a Chevy Chase Bethesda person originally many years ago. So I totally agree with you. But we're going to be sandwiched between two massive projects.
Yeah.
And besides just Indian Spring, all the traffic on the roads. I mean, it's just, the list goes on and on. We all can look at Cape and see the list.
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you guys, and believe me, we all have a lot to say about both of these. Let's focus on getting this information out to the listserv so that we can get community support for however many letters. So Rebecca, if you haven't already, would you please take the lead on making sure the listserv has all the information?
I've done this over and over and over. I'm asking the board.
I'm just asking you to keep doing that. Josh, you're already working with the Sierra Club on getting letters together, massive campaign. Is that right?
Yes.
You got that? Okay, you've got a campaign going too. Okay, so the board will discuss this in a separate meeting, and if we agree, we'll come up with a letter. I'm not saying that we are going to agree, but I'm sure that it's likely. We will write a letter to whomever needs to be sent to, and it will be based on what the community feels is right for the community. Okay, that's the best I can say right now because we haven't had a chance to discuss it as a board, but we will discuss it. I promise you that.
They could have walked away from that.
All right,
I
thank
think
you.
they've discussed it, but they've decided not to write a association letter. I think there was too much disagreement within the group.
Right.
To make a monolithic statement.
Right. I'm sure that's true. And
this is fascinating.
Yeah, well, and while I was kind of speaking a little bit out of turn, it is the sort of issue that the board should look at and try to keep getting that information out there.
Yeah.
So.
But I'm just saying at this point, time is of the essence. You literally have 6 weeks before a major decision is made.
Do you know?
I've seen that in the news, actually. She's right.
It's
Yeah.
look at the Cape. This has been going on for months,
really,
for a couple of years.
really,
And I think
Yeah.
we're pretty late.
No, it's almost
And they're
as if
making a
it's
decision, I think
accelerated
it's
pushing
November
it.
8th or whatever the date is.
I mean, she's absolutely right.
Yeah.
So
Based
I'm
on what I've read.
Okay.
It's going to take out a lot.
Okay. So, all right. So we have a lot of information. We've talked about a lot of stuff tonight, and we are unfortunately running out of time. So let's go ahead and agree to discuss this as a board. We'll have a board meeting online. We can schedule this in the next week or so. And yes, thank you, Brett, for pointing out that there is a map. We will make sure that the map gets. We'll try to post that information on the listserv and perhaps even on the Facebook page as well, so that everybody has that information and we can get as many people to support CAVE and the Sierra Club and all the other efforts. So that is well noted. Okay, any other comments thank you, Annie. Any other comments for the open forum before we close up for the night? We are probably down to the last few people here. Well, if there are no other suggestions, thank you very much for everyone to be here. Yes, excellent. So I think this was a success. Sorry, Sept? Well, there we go. All right. Well, thank you all for very much for attending and for a lovely and thoughtful discussion on a lot of topics. And we'll be in touch again in the future.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Night,
Thanks for
all.
doing this. Bye-bye.
Excellent. Yeah.